Yeah, this is very distressing, and I can't wait to hear what my venerable colleague Peter King has to say. You know, Peter King was a leader in Homeland Security. I'm sure that the policies that he helped initiate and put in place helped actually to solve some of the border crisis. But it's interesting, if you want to come into this country, whether you're coming through Canada or our southern border, you have to be vaccinated if you just want a vacation in the United States. But if you want to be, if you're an illegal immigrant, come across the border, no vaccine required. Not only that, we transport you to your destination free of charge, you know, at the expense of the taxpayers, without any regard or respect for the people that are here, the citizens here, who some are small business owners like my business, who are looking again at shutdowns potentially, or masks and vaccine mandates, including my own son, who's a member of the military.
Yeah, that's right. You often talk about that. You know, that's a big area of concern. But Congressman King, you know, Title 42 has been lifted. The Remain in Mexico policy is gone. Normally in the summertime, because of the conditions, how dangerous it is with the heat and the dry conditions, you don't see these numbers here. But the only reason why we are seeing numbers still at this time has got to be because of the policies that President Biden has either lifted from President Trump or put in place himself.
Listen, I agree with President Biden on one thing. The Delta variant is very dangerous. But if that's true, then he's almost being criminally negligent in not having stricter policies at the border. I mean, to be allowing people in with even the remotest chance of them having COVID, to me, is irresponsible, knowing that thousands and thousands are coming in with COVID at a time when we're basically clamping down on people in restaurants, saying that kids in schools have to wear masks. There's just no way this can be defended. And he's torn into this ideology of, one, having to say how dangerous COVID is, because that's the Democratic agenda. And I sort of agree with that. It is dangerous. But on the other hand, also the Democratic agenda basically is open borders. And any way they try to excuse it or apologize for it, that's what they're advocating. And it's bad enough to have people coming in illegally, but having them coming in illegally during a pandemic is just totally irresponsible.
I think what's also difficult for people to swallow here is, you know, Democrats, again, continue to accuse Republicans of politicizing this issue. But it was just last year when we heard so many Democrats talking about their reluctancy to take the vaccine. And we have a compilation of some of those clips. Here they are.
I think it's going to be a very skeptical American public about taking the vaccine, and they should be.
We can't trust the president and take his word and take a vaccine that might cause harm to us.
If and when the vaccine comes, and it's not likely to go through all the tests that needs to be and the trials that are needed to be done.
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
What we see from the numbers is this isn't just Trump supporters in rural America, deplorables that are refusing to get the vaccine. This is this is not a one demographic situation. You know, Congresswoman Tenney, they've got to at least admit that they are responsible. If they're trying to push the vaccines on everybody now, they are responsible for some of the reluctancy we're seeing.
Yeah, and by the way, this vaccine went through in a hurry. Obviously, it's been very highly effective. However, it's still not FDA approved. And we're taking a risk in forcing people to take the vaccine now. There are measures in place and things that we should be doing, as Peter King referred to. Why are we letting all these people in during a pandemic? Let's go back to the policies that worked at the border. Let's protect American citizens, just like Governor Ron DeSantis is doing. Let's focus on the vulnerable people and make sure they're protected. And, you know, it's pretty funny that you put a clip up of Governor Cuomo, who had some of the most dangerous COVID policies, putting COVID-positive patients into nursing homes with our most vulnerable citizens, and then over 15,000 died prematurely, and then the governor covered it up. Now he's facing sexual harassment charges and even sexual assault. Yeah. This is, a crisis. It's really just, it's just hypocrisy at its highest level with the Democrats right now.
I don't think it's an accident that the Republican National Committee research group that put that video together, I don't think it's an accident they started with Governor Cuomo. Let's talk a little bit more about that, though, Congressman King. The civil process is starting to play out. One of his accusers now is planning a lawsuit. But a lot of questions remain about criminal charges. And here's what Professor Alan Dershowitz said on Newsmax last night.
He's the governor. That's his style. He tends to be friendly to people. If you don't like it, don't vote for him. But the idea of turning that into a crime or a tort, or using it as evidence of a crime or a tort, is worse than a joke. It's a clear violation of civil liberties.
All right, so two questions here. What do you think about that? I mean, is this going to go anywhere criminally? And number two, how long can Governor Cuomo remain entrenched at his mansion?
As far as the second, I mean, I've known Andrew Cuomo for many years, and it was father before that. I don't see him resigning unless somehow he's totally, absolutely has to. I mean, listen, he's entitled to have, go through the impeachment hearing, have a trial in the Senate. That could take 3, 4, 5 months. If he wants to do that, that's his right to do it. But he has to, look at the realities. When every Democratic member, every Democratic leader, and of course all Republicans are calling on him to resign, and I would say probably it'll be a 99% vote in the Assembly and the Senate for impeachment and for removal. If he's really thinking about the state, he should do the right thing and resign. Again, I voted against Bill Clinton's impeachment. I voted against both of Donald Trump's impeachments. I'm not an impeachment fan, but when all this is out there, unless the governor has really strong rebuttal evidence, unless he feels his lawyers can cross-examine the witnesses and show they're not telling the truth, it's, to me, really, I don't see how he hangs on. Now, having said that also, this is also an example where he has no friends. He has no one. During the height of impeachment, Bill Clinton had a solid base that supported him. Donald Trump had a solid base. Nobody is supporting Andrew Cuomo, and that says an awful lot.
Yeah, well, if he doesn't seem to have a lot of contrition for his victims, at least that's the impression a lot of people got from his news conference, maybe he would think about his brother here, Congresswoman, and it's going to be awkward for 3 months if he has to pretend this isn't happening on his CNN show.
Yeah, this is actually, I mean, obviously that's a conflict of interest as a person in the media. He should not be covering the topic, but it's also interesting that Don Lemon started out last night right away going into Andrew Cuomo because CNN is guilty. They know they've had this cozy relationship between the governor and one of their top anchors, and it really is time probably for Chris Cuomo to step aside at this point. But I think Peter King is right, though. Cuomo doesn't really have a lot of friends, but it's worse than sexual harassment and sexual assault. These are allegations. They look terrible, but he also was trying to intimidate and to retaliate against some of these people.
The other thing too,
using paid staff, that are working. Melissa DeRosa, Rich Azzopardi, who's are his people that work for him on the taxpayer dime. He also covered up, the nursing home scandal. There's a scandal involving him
that's what I was going to say.
Potentially using his staff.
And when it comes to CNN's coverage of this too, that's the other part of this that hasn't received a lot of attention. The DOJ sweeping that under the rug, and what's going to become of that remains to be seen. Lastly, guys, I want to talk to you about landlords and the National Association of Realtors now suing about this eviction moratorium. But the other issue here too, Congressman King, is that the White House doesn't seem to care that they know it's illegal. The Supreme Court says it's illegal, but they're all too happy to give the CDC the authority to do this. What gives?
This is, again, the total hypocrisy. The Democrats are always claiming Donald Trump didn't care about the law. He would violate the law. Joe Biden is actually admitting that he's probably violating the law. I mean, that to me, also this has to end. We can't have endless payments being made to people for not working. We can't be saying that landlords have to continue to allow tenants to stay in their apartments without having to pay rent. I mean, if we do that, then we are truly becoming a socialist country. So this has to end. I think that Joe Biden is totally wrong on this, and he caved in. I mean, he did show some guts last week, but now he's caving in entirely to the progressive left wing of the party. The people, unfortunately, that Claudia Tenney has to live with in Washington, but I escaped from.
All right. Well, give the last word to the Congresswoman on that note.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, we certainly miss you in Washington, your leadership and your common sense, which is something that's not happening here. But that's exactly what's missing on this issue. Most landlords are actually small business owners and people that might own a unit or two. And these people are being forced into bankruptcy. They're not able to even pay their property taxes. Are we going to give forgiveness in these local municipalities with New York's very high rate of property tax? And where does CDC get the power? I think so. The Supreme Court already weighed in. The CDC has no power to tell us in commerce that we can't collect rent. And
well, they do now.
It's insane.
Apparently, they do now.
I'm sorry.
Apparently, they do now. And there's a lot of. Where is the outrage about just giving this authority to unelected bureaucrats? Some people are asking that question. Maybe me and some other folks. All right, great to see you both. We are out of time, unfortunately. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney and Congressman Peter King retired. Great to see you both. Thanks so much.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.